My husband's secret affair with his young secretary was just the start. They worked together to plant hidden devices, making $40 million in stolen profits. But his next plan was even worse. The very next day, I got my revenge and left them shocked when they found out their $40 million was actually... My name is Emma Carter, and if you told me a year ago that my life would become the kind of drama you see in suspense novels, I would have laughed. I was living a perfectly normal life, or so I thought. I had a decent career as a journalist in Austin, Texas, where I wrote about local events, social issues, and sometimes politics. My husband, Ryan, was a senior executive at a big real estate firm, and our 16-year-old son, Ethan, was our pride and joy. Smart, driven, and incredibly gifted with technology, he had this knack for solving problems. I never imagined just how crucial that skill would become for us. It all started one Saturday morning. Ethan was in my office helping me set up some new software on my computer. I had promised him pancakes for breakfast, but he was laser-focused on the task as usual. "Mom, your chair feels weird," he said, running his hand along the base. "Like there's something stuck inside." I didn't think much of it. I assumed it was a loose screw or maybe a part of the chair's mechanism. But Ethan's curiosity got the better of him. He grabbed his toolbox from his room and started unscrewing the base. That's when he found it, a small, square device no bigger than a matchbox, taped discreetly inside the frame. "What is that?" I asked, leaning over his shoulder. He turned the tiny device over in his hand, his face scrunched in concentration. "It's a transmitter," he said finally. "Looks like it's meant to record audio and maybe track your location." I laughed nervously. Sure, it had to be some kind of mistake. Maybe it's from when this chair was in the newsroom. It's probably old and broken. But Ethan wasn't convinced. He plugged the device into his laptop and started running some programs to figure out what it was doing. What he found changed everything. The device wasn't broken. It was very much active. It had been recording my conversations and even logging my location for months. Ethan showed me how it was transmitting data to an untraceable network. My heart sank as I realized that someone close enough to access my office, had planted it. My first instinct was to panic. Who would do this?
And why?
Ryan's name didn't even cross my mind at first. He was my husband of 15 years, the person I had trusted with everything. He was always busy with work, but I'd chalked that up to his high-pressure job. Never once did I suspect him of anything sinister. Ethan, however, was more practical. "We need to figure out where this data is going," he said. "If this thing has been in here for months, someone's been watching you, Mom." I called Megan, my best friend from college and a cybersecurity expert. When I explained what we'd found, her reaction was immediate. "Emma, this isn't a prank. Someone is targeting you. Bring me everything, and I'll help you trace it." The three of us, Megan, Ethan, and I, spent hours analyzing the data. What we found left me feeling sick. The device was connected to a private network tied to Ryan's firm. It wasn't just tracking me. It was part of a larger system used to monitor high-profile individuals across the city. The data was being used to manipulate property deals. Megan showed me the patterns. Influential property owners were coerced into selling their assets at ridiculously low prices. The firm would then flip those properties for tens of millions of dollars in profit. Ethan was the first to ask the question I was too afraid to voice. "Mom, do you think Dad knows about this?" I wanted to dismiss it, to defend Ryan. But the deeper we dug, the harder it became to ignore the truth. There were links between the network and Ryan's work email. He had signed off on the installation of surveillance devices in properties he managed. My husband wasn't just aware of this scheme. He was part of it. I couldn't bring myself to confront him immediately. I needed to know more. Megan suggested we look for similar devices in our house. We started in Ryan's home office, where Ethan found 2 more transmitters, one in his desk drawer and another in the light fixture. Each device confirmed what I was dreading. Ryan had been monitoring not just me, but our entire family. That night, I lay awake in bed, my mind spinning. Ryan slept beside me, his face calm, as if he weren't hiding a dark secret. I felt like a stranger in my own home. How long had he been doing this?
Why?
And, most importantly, what was he planning to do with all this information? The next morning, Ryan left for work as usual, kissing me on the cheek and saying, "Love you," like he always did. I forced a smile, my stomach in knots. Once he was gone, I turned to Ethan.
"We're not letting this slide," I said.
"But we need to be careful. If your dad is involved in something illegal, there's no telling how far he'll go to protect it." Ethan nodded, his eyes full of determination. "Then let's take him down." It was the first time I realized how much Ethan had grown. He wasn't just my son anymore. He was my ally. And, together, we were going to uncover the truth, no matter what it took. After Ethan and I decided to uncover the truth, there was no turning back. The more I thought about it, the angrier I became. This was my husband, the man I'd shared my life with, spying on me, on our family. What made it worse was the nagging question. Why? Was it about money? Power? Or something even darker? The first step was to gather more proof. Megan helped us dig into Ryan's work files, starting with his emails. Ethan was surprisingly adept at bypassing the security measures on Ryan's devices. "Dad's passwords are too simple," he muttered one evening, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Seriously, success 2022? Who even uses that? We found emails, dozens of them, between Ryan and someone named Lila Dawson. At first, they seemed like routine exchanges about work projects, but Megan spotted the red flags. "Look at the timestamps," she pointed out. "These aren't just work emails. They're coded messages. He's coordinating something." Ethan leaned closer. "And this Lila person, she's involved. Look at this attachment." It was a spreadsheet listing properties Ryan's firm had recently acquired, all with purchase prices far below their market value. Beside each one was a projected profit. The total was staggering, $40 million. My heart sank. This wasn't just a side hustle. This was a full-blown scheme. But the real blow came when we found a folder labeled custody case. My blood ran cold as I opened it. Inside were fabricated reports claiming I was emotionally unstable, along with audio files that had been edited to make me sound unfit as a mother. There were even surveillance photos of Ethan and me, taken without our knowledge. I sat back, shaking. "He's planning to take Ethan away from me?" Ethan, sitting beside me, clenched his fists. "No way. He doesn't get to do this." Megan put a reassuring hand on my shoulder. "This is serious, Emma. If Ryan's willing to go this far, he's not just protecting his scheme. He's eliminating threats, starting with you. We needed more help." That's when I thought of Jack Thornton, a retired detective I'd worked with on a story years ago. Jack had a reputation for being tough but fair, and he knew how to operate in the gray areas of the law. I called him that night, explaining everything. "Emma, this sounds bad," he said, his gravelly voice steady. "If he's involved in something this big, you can't confront him directly. We need to gather solid evidence and hit him where it hurts." Jack agreed to meet us at his office the next day. It was a dingy little place above a diner, with mismatched furniture and a faint smell of old coffee. But Jack's expertise was undeniable. He went through everything we'd uncovered, piecing together the puzzle like the seasoned investigator he was. "This Lila Dawson," he said, tapping her name on the printout. "She's a weak link. People like her don't stay quiet forever. If we can find her, she might be willing to talk." It didn't take long to track her down. Lila worked late hours at the firm, often alone in her office. I decided to approach her myself, against Jack's advice. "You're too close to this," he warned. "Let me handle it." But I couldn't sit back anymore. I waited outside her office one evening, my heart pounding. When she finally stepped out, I intercepted her in the hallway. "Lila," I said, keeping my voice low. "We need to talk. It's about Ryan." Her face paled. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, glancing around nervously. "Yes, you do," I pressed. "I know about the properties, the surveillance, the blackmail. I know everything." Lila froze, her eyes wide. I can't," she whispered. "They'll come after me. After my family."
"Who?"
I asked, stepping closer. "Ryan? The firm? Tell me what you're afraid of." For a moment, She hesitated. Then she broke. "It's not just Ryan," she said, her voice trembling. "It's the whole organization. They control everything. If I talk, they'll kill my brother." My heart ached for her. "Lila, I can help you. I have a retired detective and a cybersecurity expert on my side. We can protect you and your brother. But you have to trust me." She stared at me, tears in her eyes, before nodding slowly. "Okay, I'll tell you what I know." What she revealed was worse than I imagined. The surveillance devices weren't just used to track people, they were part of a larger scheme to control them. The firm targeted wealthy property owners, collected dirt on them, and forced them to sell. The profits were funneled into shell companies, some of which were linked to Ryan's personal accounts. But that wasn't all. Lila showed me a calendar entry for an upcoming meeting at a warehouse on the outskirts of town. It was a meeting between Ryan and the organization's leaders. "They're finalizing the next phase," she said. "If you want to stop this, that's where you need to be." I left the office feeling a mix of dread and determination. Ryan wasn't just complicit in this scheme, he was a key player. And now, thanks to Lila, we had a chance to bring it all crashing down. When I got home, Ethan was waiting for me, his laptop open on the kitchen table. "Mom," he said, his voice steady but urgent, "I hacked into Dad's network."
"There's more."
"This isn't just about money. They're laundering it through fake charities, even Ethan's college fund." I felt my knees go weak. "He used your college fund?" Ethan nodded. "We have to stop him." I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "We will. But we have to be smart. This is bigger than Ryan. It's about the whole organization. And we're going to take them down." By the time we reached the third night after discovering the surveillance device, I was running on sheer adrenaline. My once peaceful life was now a maze of secrets, betrayals, and plans for a fight I never thought I'd have to face. With Lila's information, the scope of Ryan's betrayal felt even bigger than before. He wasn't just lying to me, he was using our family as pawns in a larger, far darker game. I sat at the dining table with Ethan and Megan, planning our next steps. Jack joined us, spreading out a map of Austin with several locations circled in red. One of those was the warehouse where the upcoming meeting was set to take place. "This is our chance to catch him," Jack said, tapping the map. "If we can record this meeting, we'll have enough evidence to take to the FBI. But we need to be careful. These people aren't just white-collar criminals, they're dangerous." Ethan leaned forward, his expression determined. "I've been digging into the network," he said. "I found encrypted files that I think are the organization's records. If I can crack them, it'll prove everything." "Can you do it remotely?" Megan asked. Ethan nodded. "I'll need time, but I can do it. And if I sync with the warehouse's Wi-Fi during the meeting, I might be able to intercept live data." Jack raised an eyebrow. "That's risky, kid. You sure you can pull it off?" Ethan didn't hesitate. "I have to." I looked at my son, amazed by his courage. "We're not putting you in harm's way," I said firmly. "You'll stay here with Megan. Jack, and I will handle the warehouse." Ethan opened his mouth to argue, but I cut him off. "No discussion, Ethan. You're helping us enough by cracking those files." His jaw tightened, but he nodded reluctantly. The night of the meeting, my nerves were on edge. I parked a block away from the warehouse, the dark streets of Austin eerily quiet. Jack sat beside me, checking the small camera we'd hidden inside a nondescript backpack. "This will give us a live feed," he said. "As long as we stay out of sight, they'll never know we're here." I nodded, gripping the steering wheel tightly. "Let's do this." We slipped into the shadows and approached the warehouse. The building was massive, its exterior lit by a single flickering light. Jack led the way, keeping low as we reached a side window. Inside, I could see Ryan pacing alongside, 3 men I didn't recognize. They all exuded an air of power and authority. I pressed the earpiece in my ear and whispered, "Ethan, are you getting the feed?" "Got it," he replied. "And I'm syncing with the warehouse's network now. Give me a few minutes." I took a deep breath and focused on the scene inside. Ryan was speaking, his voice sharp and confident. "The next properties are lined up. Once the transactions are complete, We'll funnel the funds through the charity accounts. One of the men nodded. Good. We've kept a low profile so far, but this needs to go smoothly. No more mistakes. Ryan stiffened slightly. There won't be any mistakes. The tension in his voice made my stomach twist. This was my husband, the man I'd trusted for years, casually discussing a multi-million-dollar fraud scheme. I felt both anger and heartbreak, but I couldn't let either overwhelm me. I had to stay focused. Jack whispered, "They're moving toward the desk." "Something's happening." Inside, Ryan pulled out a stack of documents and handed them to the men. "These are the revised agreements. Once we have signatures, we're locked in." "Ethan," I murmured, "can you get a copy of those?"
"Working on it," he said.
"I'm almost in." Suddenly, one of the men looked toward the window. Jack and I ducked out of sight, my heart racing. "They didn't see us," Jack muttered. "But we need to stay sharp." Ethan's voice came through the earpiece. "I'm in. I've got the files, and I'm intercepting their data stream." "Good work," Megan added. "Now get out of there." Before we could move, the sound of a door slamming made us freeze. I peeked through the window and saw Ryan answering his phone. His expression darkened. "What do you mean there's a breach?" he snapped. Jack and I exchanged panicked glances. "They've detected me," Ethan said, his voice tense. "I'm locking them out, but I need a few more seconds." "Finish it fast," I whispered. "We're running out of time." Ryan hung up the phone and turned to the men. "We have a problem," he said. "Someone's accessing the network." One of the men pulled out a gun. "If this is a setup, Carter, you're done." My blood ran cold. The situation was spiraling out of control, and I had no idea how we were going to get out of it. I've always thought of myself as calm under pressure. Years as a journalist had taught me how to stay composed, even in the face of chaos. But standing outside that warehouse, hearing Ryan and his accomplices talk about a breach and watching one of them pull a gun, that kind of fear was different. It clawed at my chest, threatening to paralyze me. Jack motioned for us to move back, his eyes sharp. "We can't stay here. They're on edge. If they spot us, we're done." I nodded, but my feet felt heavy. Ryan was in there, tangled in something far worse than I'd ever imagined. A part of me still hoped he might snap out of it, admit his mistakes, and try to fix them. But seeing how far he'd gone, the lies, the surveillance, the fake custody case, it was clear that wasn't going to happen. Through the earpiece, Ethan's voice broke the silence. "Mom, I've locked them out of the system, but they're scrambling to regain control. I'm downloading the rest of the files now." "Good," I whispered. "Stay focused. We're almost there." Inside the warehouse, Ryan was pacing, his frustration boiling over. "We need to secure the data. If someone's in the network, they could take everything." One of the men slammed a fist on the table. "You better fix this, Carter. We're not risking our operation because of your mistakes." I said I'll handle it. Ryan snapped, his voice shaking. Jack nudged me. "We've got enough. Let's get out of here." But before we could retreat, the door to the warehouse burst open. FBI agents flooded the room, their weapons drawn. "Federal agents. Hands in the air," one of them shouted. My breath caught in my throat. Jack grinned. "That's my guy," he muttered, clearly relieved. Through the chaos, I saw Ryan freeze. For a brief moment, our eyes met through the window. His expression wasn't one of anger or guilt, it was fear. Pure, unfiltered fear. "Emma," Ethan's voice came through again, this time panicked. "Something's wrong. They're trying to track me down. I think Dad gave them access to my IP address."
"What?"
My heart dropped. "Ethan, disconnect."
"Now."
"I'm trying," he said, his voice shaking. "But they're fast." Inside the warehouse, one of the men lunged for a laptop on the desk. An FBI agent tackled him, but not before he managed to send a final command. Jack's phone buzzed, and he frowned at the screen. "They've locked onto Ethan's location. We need to get to him," I said, fear clawing in my chest. Jack didn't hesitate. "Let's move." We raced back to my house, my mind spinning. If Ryan's people knew where Ethan was, they wouldn't hesitate to come after him. He was the key to everything, the files, the the data, the proof that could dismantle their entire operation. When we burst through the door, Megan and Ethan were huddled over his laptop. "Mom," Ethan called, relief flashing across his face. "I managed to disconnect, but it was close." "Too close," Jack muttered, checking the locks on the doors. "We need to secure this place." Before we could react, my phone buzzed. A text message appeared on the screen, sent from an unknown number. "You thought you could outsmart us. Think again." I showed it to Jack. "They're not giving up." Megan frowned. "They're bluffing. We have the files. They can't undo what's already been sent." Ethan's eyes widened.
Wait.
What if they're not bluffing? What if they have something bigger planned? His words hit like a lightning bolt. This wasn't just about covering their tracks. They were desperate. And desperate people were dangerous. As if on cue, the power in the house went out, plunging us into darkness. My heart pounded as Jack pulled out a flashlight. "They've cut the power. Stay close." Ethan grabbed his laptop. "I still have battery. I can finish decrypting the files." Megan nodded. "Do it. We'll keep you safe." The next few minutes were a blur. Jack stood guard at the front door, his hand hovering near his concealed weapon. Megan and I barricaded the windows, working quickly in the dim light. Ethan sat at the kitchen table, his fingers flying over the keyboard. Finally, he let out a triumphant shout. "Got it. The files are decrypted. I'm sending everything to the FBI."
"Good," Jack said.
"Now let's get out of here." Before we could move, headlights flooded the driveway. A sleek black car pulled up, and Ryan stepped out. He was alone, his hands raised as if in surrender. "Emma," he called. "Let me explain." Jack moved to block the door, but I stopped him. "Let me handle this," I said, stepping outside. Ryan looked disheveled, his confident demeanor shattered. "Emma, I didn't mean for it to go this far," he said, his voice pleading.
"They forced me."
"I didn't have a choice." "You always had a choice," I said coldly. "You chose greed. You chose lies. And you chose to betray your own family." "Emma, please." "No," I snapped. "It's over, Ryan. The FBI has everything. They're shutting down the operation as we speak." His face twisted in desperation. "You don't understand. They'll come after me. They'll come after you. We need to work together." I shook my head, tears stinging my eyes. "We're not a team anymore. You destroyed that." The sound of sirens in the distance broke the tense silence. Ryan's shoulders slumped as he realized the fight was over. "Emma, I'm sorry, but it was too late for apologies." The FBI arrived moments later, taking Ryan into custody. As they led him away, I felt a strange mix of relief and sorrow. The man I'd once loved was gone, replaced by someone I barely recognized. In the weeks that followed, the fallout was massive. The FBI dismantled the organization, arresting dozens of key players. Ethan's files became critical evidence, exposing years of fraud and corruption. Ryan, facing a mountain of charges, eventually pleaded guilty in exchange for a lighter